So about 16 years ago, I was sitting in this building taking my finals in English language and literature. And to be honest, I never thought that I would set foot in here ever again, let alone speaking to an audience at the Oxford Farming Conference about my experiences of neurodiversity and dairy farming. So how did I get here? As a child, I was a bookish indoor kid. I was terrified of cows, horses, and dogs. My grandfather was a dairy farmer, but he was quite a difficult character, and it wasn't really a lifestyle that I looked at as aspirational, working outdoors 365 days of the year. So after university, I embarked on a career in book publishing. I went to London and worked for Jessica Kingsley Publishers, and my job was to market their autism book list. So that's where my interest in neurodiversity first came from. But why did I give that up? Why did I give up the career that I worked so hard to get a foothold in to become a dairy farmer? Well, the answer is love and ADHD. So as well as following my dairy farmer husband, who was never going to move to London, I also realized that ADHD had a lot to do with it. I was diagnosed in 2022, and it's led me to understand a lot more about myself. I now know that it's the reason that I'm impulsive, entrepreneurial, creative, unafraid to take risks. I felt stifled by the hierarchies of an office environment. I needed to be my own boss and do a job that was different every day. So together, Nick and I have gone on a journey from being employees through to contract farmers, and now to tenants in our own right, where we milk 380 spring calving cows. And I strongly believe that neurodiversity is at least partly responsible for our success. But perhaps I should start by saying what I mean by neurodiversity. So the word was invented in the 90s by an Australian sociologist called Judy Singer, and it's an umbrella term that covers a range of neurological differences, including, but not limited to, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, brain injury, Tourette syndrome, and others. And it seeks to understand those things as natural variations in the human brain, rather than disorders that should be cured. It seeks to look at them as having strengths and challenges, and to advocate for support for the challenges, which are largely caused by a world that is created by neurotypical brains and for them. And on our farming journey, we've employed many fantastic people, many of whom are neurodivergent. It's something that's really common in our industry, but we don't necessarily talk about it. I didn't even recognize the traits in myself, despite my background working at JKP. And along this journey that I've been on, I've realized that my grandfather, who lived a life according to strict routines and disciplines, like many dairy farmers, didn't have very many friends and would talk in a monologue about his interests, was probably autistic. His son had severe dyslexia, and their challenges to communicate with each other had pretty devastating consequences for our family farm, which is no longer in the family. And I can't help but wonder how many other farming families that story could be true for. So why does this matter in farming? Well, I've recently worked with Farmers Weekly to carry out the first nationwide survey into neurodiversity in the farming population, and 36% of respondents identified as neurodivergent. If 1 in 3 of us are impacted by this, it's surely something we should be talking about. And when we look at the other challenges our industry faces, from recruitment and retention to succession planning, mental health, and rural isolation, surely we need to consider whether neurodiversity could be a factor in some of that. We've all heard the story about the less academic child on the family staying at home to farm, or being pushed into agriculture college because that's somehow the best place for them. But I want to challenge that narrative because it does an injustice, really, to the amazing people in our industry and the vast breadth of skills that are required to farm in the modern world. And many people are choosing or staying in agriculture because it suits neurodivergent ways of thinking, and that's something that we should be celebrating. To quote Richard Branson, who's probably the most famous dyslexic entrepreneur in the world, with a diverse workforce, you have a diversity of thoughts, approaches, outcomes to the challenges that your business will face, and that's something we need now more than ever. Over the last year, I've been embarking on a Nuffield scholarship on this subject with the aim of raising awareness of neurodiversity in farming, with learning how we can make the industry more inclusive and understanding the unique skills and perspectives that neurodivergent people bring. I started my travels in Scotland, where they've been a little bit ahead of the curve on this. So the NFU ran a dyslexia campaign back in 2014, and RSABI have been running free dyslexia screening over the last year. I met David Nicholson, who is a smallholder and autism advocate. He's passionate about Massey Ferguson tractors, and he talked to me really powerfully about how the smallholding is a place of solace where he can truly be himself. I also met the brilliant Mike Duxbury, who was on this stage last year, and he showed me the new inclusive farm site in Scotland, where he's broadening his vision for people of all abilities to be able to learn farming skills and contribute to the agricultural industry. My next stop was Brisbane in Australia, where I visited Sun Pork Farms. It's the only example of a neurodiversity hiring program in agriculture that I found anywhere in the world. They've been running the Autism and Agriculture program since 2018, and they married a skills shortage in the pig sector with an underemployed cohort of people in the autism community. Through an inclusive recruitment program, they managed to bring in autistic people, and instead of running a traditional sort of recruitment process, they created a paid training program. Those people were given the opportunity to experience what it would be like to work on the pig farm from the safety of a town hall. So they set up this kind of model farm where people could practice climbing over a gate hurdle, listen to the sounds they would hear on the farm, try on the uniform, smell the smells, and see whether it was the right fit for them. They then progressed to going out to the farm and doing 2 weeks of paid training. And then those who went into the business were fully integrated into the wider team, and everyone at Sun Pork received neurodiversity awareness training. And now 70% of those people are still employed on the farms. After that, I moved on to the USA. I went to Stanford University and met Dr. Lawrence Fung, who runs the Stanford Neurodiversity Project, where they carry out research, advocacy, and they run the pioneering Neurodiversity at Work program. I realized a bucket list ambition and met Dr. Temple Grandin at Colorado State University. Dr. Grandin's autism and visual thinking skills are at the heart of her amazing connection with animals, which have enabled her to revolutionize cattle handling design systems, which are now used in over 50% of abattoirs in the USA. She's also talked extensively about career opportunities for people with autism, and I saw an amazing example of this in practice at TACT, teaching the autism trades, the autism community trades in Denver, where people learn vocational skills such as welding, carpentry, electronics, and culinary arts. If only such a place existed for farming. And then lastly, I visited Rising Tide Car Wash in Florida, where over 80% of the employees are autistic. And through a combination of inclusive recruitment, structured training programs, extreme clarity of the outcomes they want to achieve, and visual management tools, they achieve exceptional results. I saw so many strategies that could be applied on farms, from QR codes for training prompts to color-coded tool stations and traffic light timers for tasks. But what was most impressive was the culture there, where everyone is supported to achieve, and they celebrate everyone's success. My last stop was Ireland, where I visited Kildalton Agriculture College, where they support learners with all kinds of diverse abilities, and they have fantastic hands-on learning tools, from tractor simulators to model cows to practice carving. I went to see the social farming program in Ireland, where farmers are paid to host people with diverse needs and abilities on their farms, with funding from both the health and agriculture budgets. The individuals set goals for themselves, and the farmer helps them to achieve them over a 12-week period. This could be as simple as getting outdoors in nature, through to developing skills to get back into the workforce. It's all about putting farms back at the heart of the community, and for me, it's the definition of public money for public goods. And lastly, I visited University College Dublin, where they're applying the Stanford principles to make University College Dublin a neurodiversity-friendly campus. So what have I learned over this last year? Well, there's huge potential for us to make our industry more inclusive for neurodiversity. And the best news is that these accommodations don't have to be costly, complex, or bureaucratic. It really comes down to treating people as individuals and making small changes. Most people know what they need to thrive, and our job as employers is to create a space where they can talk about that, and then we can work with them to make it possible. Little tweaks, whether it's like a change to someone's working rota, a pair of noise-cancelling headphones, or even just having someone to talk to, can make all the difference. If they can make this work on a pig farm in the outback, we can definitely make it work here. And as the name of the car wash implies, a rising tide lifts all boats. If we make our businesses neurodiversity friendly, everyone thrives. Thank you.
Liz, we've got a good question on the app. Does nature have a role in supporting neurodiversity with farming and wider society?
Does nature?
Yeah, nature.
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen that on my travels. So many people have chosen this industry because it suits them better to be working outdoors, to be working with animals, because you know, they can't work in an office environment. They don't want to be bound by those structures and routines. And that's why we need to be promoting the industry to more different people, because there's so many people like me who I've kind of stumbled into this industry through my husband, but there's so many other people like me who would never have made that connection, that this could be a good environment for us to work in without someone telling them about it.
Thank you, thank you.
Anna Eccleston from Farmers Weekly. Thank you for the presentations from everyone. I've had the pleasure of working alongside Liz over the past few months as we relaunch our Level the Field campaign focused on neurodiversity in 2025. So my question is for Liz. What advice do you have for the organisations in this room that might be looking to start this focus or their journey, or perhaps renew their ED&I strategies? Where do they start to make their businesses more inclusive for neurodivergent people?
Well, I think the first thing is just talking about it, because everyone will find that they have already got those people in their businesses, and what we need to do is listen to their experiences and create a space where we can talk about it. I mean, if we're wanting to go down the route of training, TIA have got a training module on diversity and inclusion, which touches on neurodiversity, and Nuffield have also created one. It's called Ag Diversity, and there's a module that you can access online there. So if you're looking for something formal to kind of start the conversation, that's a great point. And then obviously, there's tons of resources online, and I think we've just got to start looking for them. Most of them are not specific to farming, is probably the challenge, and that's why I'm hoping that the work with Farmers Weekly will start to bring in some of the things that other industries have already been doing, the ones that have, you know, as individual farmers, we don't have an HR department to help us, to advise us on this kind of thing, but other industries have been a little bit further ahead of the curve, or places like Stanford, and we'll start to bring that research into the agricultural space and adapt it to our needs. And so basically look out for the campaign this year, because it's going to have some really useful content to help you take that conversation further within your businesses.